You ready for some heads to explode? I have the man who is top of class in political commentary, Bill Maher. How is the old school liberal who says the Democratic Party left him in its woke wake more relevant than ever? And is it true? Is he about to meet the man he criticizes most of all? Bill Maher headed to the White House? For reals? Let's get after it.
In this breakdown, we're unpacking two surprisingly candid conversations that defy the usual political script. Bill Maher and Gavin Newsom pulling no punches and crossing partisan lines. In an era addicted to tribalism and cancel culture, these two aren't towing the line, they're ripping it up. Maher continues to call out hypocrisy on both ends of the spectrum, while Newsom, the Democratic governor of California, dares to engage with conservative firebrands like Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, earning him backlash from his own party. Why the outrage? Because both men recognize what too many Democrats won't admit: the party brand is collapsing under its own weight. Unity theater won't save a party drowning in its own contradictions. From the madness of hyper-wokeness to the bureaucratic, rot-crippling California, they're speaking truths others won't touch. And if you're exhausted by the usual spin and desperate for someone to open the curtain and show the real mess backstage, you're in the right place.
Fetterman was in the news today. He said, we're talking about the Democratic Party, he said, if we don't get our shit together, we're going to be a permanent minority. Doing something about it. I applaud it. I think it's great. You've got this podcast. You're talking to people. You know, it's amazing to me that even that is controversial to some people. They call it platforming. If you talk to someone you don't agree with.
Yeah.
I feel like this country is divided into owners and healers. People who think you can own the other side. Yeah, well, Gavin Newsom owned DeSantis. Yeah. DeSantis destroyed Gavin Newsom. Yeah. Or people who want to talk and heal. And I feel like the next president's going to be, at least if it comes from this party, the Democratic Party, someone who wants to talk and heal. And I feel like we're doing
that. It's really been interesting, the reaction to the podcast. I mean, we had some controversial figures on, I'll acknowledge that, and Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and some others. But you're right. I mean, this idea that we can't even have a conversation with the other side.
You have to. They won.
Thank you. That's it. Bottom line. And by the way, or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now. We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense. And I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground and not take cheap shots. I'm not looking to put a spoke in the wheel of their, or at least a crowbar in the spokes of their wheel to trip them up, to your point. And I think it's important. Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than we should be. This notion of cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about this.
The Democratic Party isn't being sabotaged by Republicans, it's imploding from within. And Maher and Newsom are among the vanishing few with the guts to say it out loud. Maher bluntly calls the party brand what it is: not unfairly attacked, not misunderstood, just flat-out toxic. Meanwhile, Newsom's willingness to engage with conservative figures isn't a betrayal, it's leadership. But to the fragile minds of the far-left, conversation equals betrayal, and dialogue is now platforming. They'd rather scream cancel him than listen. But here's the brutal truth. If your movement crumbles the moment it's questioned, it was never built to last. Maher and Newsom aren't here for Twitter theatrics or performative indignation. They're talking about saving democracy not by shouting louder, but by engaging with ideological opponents. They're calling out the purity tests, the smugness, the judgmentalism that's turned the left into a clique of virtue-signaling gatekeepers. Newsom's message is clear. Unless Democrats stop isolating themselves and start growing up, they're headed for another well-earned defeat.
Don't you think that they should be obsessed with how to do things differently? And you don't even hear them talking about it.
Well, you certainly hear Newsom talking about it. He said he's just started this podcast. I'm sure you heard that. He said he was modeling it on what I do on Real Time. He said, I want to talk to other people. His first guest was Charlie Kirk, who could be not more be on the other side. I like this. I like the new Newsom. I've been asking for this Newsom for a long time. So I think he's a great candidate if he was more of a centrist Democrat, and he seems like he wants to be. So I think it's great, and I can't wait till Friday and talk to him.
I can't wait to see what he says about what he's got working to make that not happen again when the fires come again.
Well, the whole thing is about this state is just so fucked with over taxes and over regulation.
Sure.
I mean, I last time he was on, I was, kidding him about the fact that I took 3 years to get my solar power turned on. Now I just had my roof redone because of the fires, because now I want a fireproof roof. 2 inspections, and you have to pay for those inspections, They're not free. And I asked this on the show last week. I see it got picked up by a lot of people. Why do I have to have inspectors looking at my roof? It's my roof. If it falls on my head, that's my problem. I don't need the government looking over my shoulder here. And this is why we can't get anything done in this state. The government is just too in our fucking business. And he was on last January, and I asked him about this and the red tape, and he had a big answer about, well, we're blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm going to find out what the exact blah, 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 blah was, and see now that it's a year and 3 months later, what's been done. Because if it's nothing, that's not good enough.
It's hard for people in power not use the power.
Bill Maher doesn't mince words when it comes to California's dysfunction. He unloads on the state's bloated regulatory mess, where even trying to install solar panels or fireproof your roof becomes a multi-year battle with red tape. That's the reality in a state that boasts about leading the climate charge while simultaneously burning to the ground every summer. Maher's not just venting about delays. He's pulling the curtain back on a leadership class that would rather pass another layer of rules than actually solve the problem. He asks the hard questions. Why are we still rebuilding in wildfire zones without addressing the real dangers of toxic ash? Why is the rebuilding process so drawn out and expensive? Why is government more focused on micro-regulating construction than managing the disaster itself? This isn't just local dysfunction, it's a national warning. If California is the template for progressive governance, the rest of America better start paying attention, and fast.
Let me ask you this, last question. You're going to meet with the president.
I am?
So Kid Rock makes it happen. What do you think has been the response so far? What do you think it will be, and why are you doing it? Which I'm totally for, by the way, and I love it.
I get it. Well, I'm doing it because, first of all, it was presented as
a dare.
not a dare. No, just like, maybe this is a beginning to heal America. No, I don't have some sort of complex where I think I can heal America. I can't. Okay, let's get that clear. I'm not going to be healing America. But if 2 guys who've been at each other for so long, I mean, it's kind of a Nixon to China thing. I have the credentials. There was nobody who was harder on Trump or more prescient about the fact that he wasn't going to leave office voluntarily than I was. I feel like I have the credentials. But they also respect me because I'm honest about the woke train to crazy town. And I don't shrink from that. And I've also lost a lot of fans for that. The woke people have left the building, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice. But it does give you a certain credibility. So I just think to meet somebody, first of all, it's an honor to be invited to the White House.
Yes, it is.
And I've already had a couple of people who I said to them, I'm just going to take it as a backhanded compliment that you glide right past the idea that little Bill Maher from Rivervale, New Jersey, just a humble kid from the suburbs, was invited for a private dinner to the White House. You glide right past that to how dare you talk to him, and that you're not impressed by it at all. I'm impressed by it a lot. I'm impressed the fuck out of it. I get to go to the White House, and yes, that is the structure of this dinner, is just let's talk. Let's talk to each other face to face. Let's not stop shouting from 3,000 miles away.
Yes, it's true. Bill Maher accepted a dinner invitation at the White House. And no, he hasn't gone soft. He's not wearing a red hat or handing out hugs to MAGA loyalists. Maher has been one of Trump's most consistent critics, warning early and often that the former president would do everything possible to cling to power. But he also knows that shouting into the void of social media hasn't healed a single divide. So when the invite came via Kid Rock, of all people, Maher said, yes. Why? Because grown-ups talk, even when they disagree. It's symbolic, sure, but it's also a gauntlet thrown. If someone like Maher, who has torched Trump publicly for years, can still sit down for a real conversation, then what's everyone else's excuse? It's not about making peace with bad ideas. It's about refusing to be swallowed by division. If you're still here, you're the kind of viewer who wants substance over spectacle. So do me a favor, hit subscribe, drop a like, and let's keep the BS in check on all sides. See you in the next one.